Greetings, dear people. Well, if you haven't figured it out by now, Jennifer Coffindaffer, who bases her entire online presence and expertise on being a former FBI agent, believes that Sebastian Rogers was abducted on February 26th and that Chris and Katie Proudfoot are probably responsible for it.
But of course you have evidence of foul play. Sebastian Rogers did not walk away and disappear into thin air without help. The FBI is not offering a reward except for the fact they believe there is criminal activity involved. I think the needle is pointing in a direction. If it comes out that the Proudfoots are involved, Sonny, there is going to be no one that is shocked and surprised.
We're going to go through several bits of Coffindaffer's recent commentary and talk about how unfair, unbalanced, and problematic her presence is in the Sebastian Rogers case. Jennifer bases her opinion on several red flags that she has outlined against Chris and Katie Proudfoot.
Talk about several what I'll call red flags here.
I'm going to show you in this video that the most important red flags she waves are also exhibited by Seth Rogers, and in some cases are much more severe than the flags she's waving against the Proudfoots. In speaking about these red flags, she makes the point that when all of these red flags are added up, they point her in a certain direction. Well, if the same red flags are exhibited by the other party, and in some cases the red flags are even more severe, then your conclusions equally or even more heavily should point in that other direction, right? But for some reason, and we don't know why for sure, she's chosen the Proudfoot is probably guilty hill to die on. And before I go through my tit for tat on red flags, I need to talk about the posture that Seth's team is taking on this case in the court of public opinion, and the role that I believe Coffindaffer is filling in for that public court trial. Since the time Sebastian went missing, right up until now, nearly a year later, Seth has acted like he's a suspect, or he's even said he's a suspect.
But yeah, I'm still a suspect of my son's disappearance. You guys don't know what kind of effect that has on a person. And it really upsets me that they haven't cleared me. All three of us haven't been cleared yet. And I'll tell you right now, had nothing to do with my son's disappearance. Sumner County should understand that I didn't.
With his friend Bullhorn Betty doing several streams titled Clear Seth Rogers, and he's acting like a suspect who needs to mount a legal defense for a criminal trial. Yes, I also agree that he's shown his concern and his sorrow for his missing son, and I am not discounting that. But when you put all of his actions together, he acts like a charged suspect awaiting trial who's building a defense team. He's got his PR guy. He's got a group that calls itself an intelligence agency while putting out anti-intelligence nonsense and disinformation nearly every day for whatever motive or reason that is. And now, with Jennifer Coffindaffer, they have their expert law enforcement witness.
No, I am not a PI. I work as an expert witness.
Right? As you can see right here, she says, and she writes, that one of her lines of work is as an expert witness. Expert witnesses in trials are hired by either the defense or the prosecution to give their expert opinion. And I'm not saying that Coffindaffer was hired financially by Seth's team, but if she wasn't, she sure is acting like it, because her commentary is extremely skewed and one-sided and has not taken all of the red flags into account, just one side of red flags. Now you might say, Lynn, chill the F out. What's the problem with a woman on YouTube giving one-sided opinion? Happens all day, every day. Nope. Sorry. It doesn't. It does not happen all day, every day that we have a person who's built their entire online persona as a former FBI agent and law enforcement expert who's heavily throwing their weight into one side of a case while showing a complete tone deafness to facts that could also point her in the other direction. Also, in the court of public opinion, you have to take the audience's expectations into account. And when Coffindaffer says former FBI, people don't hear former, they just hear FBI. And with that comes the expectation that her analysis is going to factor in all of the evidence from all sides. But when Coffindaffer doesn't make it clear that she's in essence acting as an expert witness for one side, she's allowing people to believe that she's speaking from an objective, non-biased point of view when she is clearly invested in one side of the case. Now that you see why I have a problem with her skewed, undisclosed witness role in this team, let's break down some key points of her commentary that are blaringly one-sided, completely blind to more problematic behavior by her client, and therefore shouldn't be deemed as the take of an FBI expert, but an expert witness who is invested in helping one side. Now, Coffindaffer speaks a lot about Sebastian's behavior at the Texas Roadhouse and how hungry he appeared to be without acknowledging the role that Seth's uneven, inconsistent co-parenting could play in that eating behavior. She speaks from the perspective of a mother with a husband, but doesn't speak from the perspective of a divorced mother who is co-parenting.
Sebastian Rogers ate like he hadn't eaten in days. One of the reasons could have been because he was off his medication. We know that the medication he took suppressed his appetite. One of the thought processes is that he was not on his medication. That's why we saw him eat in, like I said, what I noticed didn't seem the normal manner of how most people eat. Most 15-year-olds eat even, unless they're starving. We know for a fact they did not appreciate the fact that Sebastian Rogers would get up in the middle of the night and eat, take snacks, take treats. You know, they didn't want him in the kitchen because he would get up in the middle of the night and he would eat snacks that weren't healthy for him, you know, sweets. And then he'd take them back to his room and hide it. I'm calling this a red flag. I have never seen Sebastian Rogers eat, but this one time. Seth said this was unusual. It's his father. Seth raised him as a young boy.
Well, let's take a look at what Seth told us. Seth told us that he let him eat whatever he wanted with him and that he didn't enforce Katie's rules at his house.
Pick him up whatever he wants to cook for dinner or whatever he wants me to cook for breakfast, so on and so forth. I work when my son is here with me. I work with him so that everything in this house is his.
It's like, got in trouble in your house. He got in trouble in your watch. You tell me why he's in trouble, and I will determine if it's severe enough that he will be punished here.
We also know that he would leave Sebastian alone all night and allow him to play games on the internet, exposing him to all kinds of predators. Trading houses between parents screws with a child's schedule, especially if the same rules are not applied in both houses. If he spends a weekend with Seth where he stays up all night alone on the internet and plays and eats all kinds of sugar and isn't on his medication, when he gets back to Katie's house, his sleep pattern is off, his hunger is off, everything is off. Why is this not accounted for in Coffindaffer's commentary? And why, oh why, is a former FBI agent giving ignorant, naive parenting advice about having healthy snacks in the house?
If you don't want them to have snacks, have in your cupboard popcorn, granola bar if you think that's healthy, fruit, cheese, salami, meats.
Let's be realistic, okay? When you put healthy snacks in the house for your kid, do you think they only choose the healthy snacks when you're not looking? And if you have a problem with Sebastian eating unhealthy snacks in the middle of the night, possibly because he wasn't on medication, again, talk to Seth, because Seth told us himself. He allowed him to eat whatever he wanted. He let him stay up all night and he didn't give him his medication. In my opinion, it's abusive to confuse a kid with different rules and different standards in different houses, and to essentially alienate the kid from the meanie parent who won't let them on the internet and won't let them sneak unhealthy foods back into their room at night. Coffindaffer also has a great deal to say about Chris Proudfoot's treatment of Sebastian without acknowledging the evidence showing equal or worse treatment from Seth.
I'm turning a little bit to motive. Why in the world would Katie and Chris Proudfoot not want Sebastian? Some parents are amazing when they have challenged kids. And I think that Sebastian Rogers was ill-treated. I actually don't think, I know. He well says he beat him with a belt. He's an autistic child. I don't know what else I can say about that. This isn't guessing what he did. I'm not throwing what I think out. I'm throwing what he said he did. He makes sure to, with his pants on. All right. He beat his child with a belt. He's an autistic kid. Use your hand. Was the hand just not enough? Did you need to incite that much fear so he could see you coming at him with his belt? He warns him. If you do that again, I'm throwing all your things that mean a lot to you, like the snake. I'm throwing it all away. Next time, Sebastian cleans his room. Chris Proudfoot, I bet he was salivating. Chris Proudfoot goes in there. Throws his stuff away. I don't get taking away from a child things that mean things to them, because it's just as important as what is important to Chris Proudfoot in his life. This is emotional abuse, in my opinion, and physical with a belt. That's my opinion.
We totally agree that Chris Proudfoot admits to hitting Sebastian with a belt. But Seth also told us with his own mouth that Sebastian complained about getting his ass beat by Seth. He complained to Katie and he complained to teachers.
It's CPS in California.
And can you share what that was related to? Or is that...
My son went to school and told his teacher that I beat his... And when CPS showed up, I was like, I told him to clean his room or I was going to bust his butt. Did you bust his butt? No, he cleaned his room. There was the threat of a butt whooping.
Now, you also talk it being emotional abuse when Chris Proudfoot threw out Sebastian's toys for not cleaning his room. But you don't acknowledge that Seth didn't really even take the time to discipline Sebastian at all, or take any corrective measures until Sebastian accused him of beating his ass. And his way of handling that was to put Mortal Kombat on blood mode.
So when he came home, I literally turned on Mortal Kombat and I turned the blood action on. And I showed him what a beatdown was through video games. I was like, you see all that blood and everything, son? That's a beatdown. I was going to bust your butt.
And he admits that when he did this, Sebastian was no more than 5 or 6 years old. Now, you tell me what is more emotionally, okay? Taking toys away or threatening your 5 to 6-year-old child with blood mode on a violent video game to get your kid to realize that his ass wasn't in the first place. And as a side note, Seth denies ever beating Sebastian. But if that's the case, why did he have to show the kid a comparison in blood mode? This implies that there was a beating, but there was no blood. And therefore, he's not allowed to call whatever Sebastian got from Seth a beating because there was no blood. Okay? No, not okay. Now, let's talk about history of abuse. Coffindaffer speaks passionately and emotionally about the abuse that Chris Proudfoot's ex-wife Nina talks about.
So we know Chris Proudfoot had 5 wives. Okay, 5. We know the last wife, Nina. If you watch that, make sure you're sitting down and you're prepared to hear what it's like to listen to somebody who's...
Without acknowledging that Katie also made outcries about Seth and had a protective order against him in California. She's also talked about there being 5 CPS reports that we've never seen against Chris Proudfoot that we'll never ever get confirmation of, but fails to acknowledge that Seth tells us himself there were CPS reports in California from when Seth was spending more time with Sebastian. Coffindaffer also goes into a lengthy discussion about how Chris Proudfoot's treatment of Sebastian shows motive.
This lines up for motive. It lines up for predisposition.
If you believe that, then you also believe Seth has motive, because there are as many bad treatment red flags with Seth as there are with Chris Proudfoot. Part of this discussion has to do with the syncing up of dates of Sebastian's disappearance with the filing of divorce papers by Katie, February 26th.
The divorce papers, my understanding, were filed at the same time that Sebastian went missing. If something terrible happened to Sebastian, and if that was planned, to me, that date's important. And if I were making this case, and if law enforcement has proven that something nefarious happened to Sebastian Rogers, that date could come important. And I would definitely introduce that, ask the prosecutor to introduce that as an exhibit.
I agree that this could eventually be determined to show motive and be significant in the case. But Coffindaffer suggests that it points to motive for Katie when Seth is the one who has made it abundantly clear that he's the one who is still bitter and angry about the divorce. And I mean, have you seen the many panel appearances where Seth takes every opportunity possible to disparage and dehumanize Katie? He even talks specifically about how the divorce was like a D-Day to him, and it's clear that his heart carries a stew of anger and resentment toward Katie over that divorce.
I've been homeless before. Thank you to my ex-wife for making me homeless.
Have this shared goal, right? To find your boy. Has it gotten any better between you and Katie in terms of sharing info?
It doesn't feel like a shared goal. It sure doesn't feel like a shared goal.
Wow.
It feels like it's only my goal.
Once again, she wasn't being an adult. She wasn't being a parent taking care of an autistic child.
What she put me through, the hell that she put me through, I didn't have a thing. I mean, we're talking about, I went 7 years without a girlfriend after the divorce. But obviously, he's feeding me a line of bullshit every time I fucking spoke to him. And my phone number's still the same. And I know he's probably watching, he's probably in chat. Hi, Chris. Fuck off. I'm not going to let some dirtbag run the show when it comes to finding my son. It seems that they're having the fucking grandest time of their damn fucking life. Well, I hope they fucking enjoy it. Because I believe in fucking karma. When it comes around, I hope it smacks them in the face. I believe that would absolutely bring my son home is some good 70s detective work.
Shoe leather.
Maybe unethical now, but it sure would work in this case.
A little bit of waterboarding, maybe.
You know, you're not the first person that said that.
Along with that, let's look at how past behavior predicts future behavior. Seth openly boasted about taking revenge out on someone for a 10-year-old grudge.
So I made his pizza for him, and it had floor spice, spit, and had hair in it.
Yeah.
And I cooked that, and he ate the whole thing in my lobby and turned around and told me it was the best pizza he ever had and ordered another one.
But Jennifer says people don't change colors, right?
And I'm telling you, just like people who don't abuse, who don't think it's right to beat others, who don't think it's right to hit, who don't think it's right to emotionally and verbally, do that. You don't change colors. You can get counseling. You can seek help. There's always help to a degree, but you don't just stop oftentimes.
That's fair. People don't change colors. So are we more concerned about someone admitting that they hit Sebastian with a belt, or with someone who admits taking revenge after 10 years? What are we more concerned about? Now, in this segment, she blames Katie for Sebastian's essay by another child, saying that it was her job to protect him from such risks.
Another red flag. I'm going to call it a red flag because of this. When you have somebody who has special needs and autistic, you have to take special care that they're not in and around someone who could take advantage of them. And to allow that, to me, just shows not a lot of care and concern for the child.
This assertion comes from a medieval belief that you can predict someone is abusive by just looking at them, and that if a kid gets SA'd, it's the fault of the victim's parent, not the actual person who committed the abuse. It's like saying that it's the mother's fault when the dad SAs a child. How on earth was Katie supposed to screen for that? Was she supposed to look at that kid and say, hey, are you a sex offender? And do you think the kid would just say, oh yeah, that's right, I am. But still, can you hire me as a babysitter? Now, I could see this being an issue if Sebastian made an outcry and they continued to allow that child around. But as far as I know, they handled it right away. Now, let's talk about Coffindaffer's endorsement and praise of Dog the Bounty Hunter, Tony Mathis, and the At Night team. It was when she said the following things that I became totally convinced that she is incentivized to take one side, whether the incentive is financial or emotional.
No, I was just going to say that to your point about Dog being involved in all of this, I agree with you on all of that, that it doesn't matter who it is, if people like them or don't like them. If they're getting Sebastian Rogers' face and name, that's good. And to Dog is at a whole different level. I mean, yes. He has such exposure. Yes, he's older. Yes, you know, his prime was back in the day. He still has a huge following, and he's important. He boots on the ground. No, but he has a group, and At Night has the money and the, you know, resources that they're looking. And I love that they're looking, because they're just looking into any lead that might lead to Sebastian. And thank goodness somebody is out there at the outer reaches, you know, looking. They're running down the more obscure leads. And I'm so grateful.
She praises Dog the Bounty Hunter for his big following and At Night for their efforts to push information out, while totally failing to acknowledge that most of the information they put out is complete bullshit. And if you haven't paid attention in the last 48 hours, one member of their team is having an absolute manic meltdown on Twitter as we speak, accusing the Proudfoot side of affairs and drug use. And they're doing this all while being a plaintiff in a RICO lawsuit where they're accusing the defendants of doing exactly what they are doing now. Are you really sitting here telling me that all publicity is good publicity, even in a true crime case, even if the publicity sends people in the opposite direction of where Sebastian might be, even if the publicity is meant to harm family members? How on earth can a former law enforcement officer endorse this extreme and abusive internet behavior? You even implored the audience to get missing flyers from Tony Mathis to use on their broadcasts.
If you have an opportunity, I know Seth, if you contact through Tony, please get flyers, get whatever you can to get their name out.
You mean the missing flyers that this team makes that always say he went missing on February 25th? When law enforcement and you say that he went missing on the 26th?
And all the information, all the messaging from law enforcement has said the 26th, not the 25th. I just have to believe law enforcement here. Right. They denoted it on the endangered alert. And and they've kept their posters that way. The FBI has said that. So it makes me think that we don't know, can't see, that there was some sort of sighting on the 26th.
Are you really telling people to use flyers with intentional contradictions from law enforcement? And have you ever wondered why they keep intentionally contradicting law enforcement on that date? Is it because it shows a significant motive on that side? And did you even notice that when you were on someone's panel going on and on about the missing date being the 26th, that the missing flyer being shown on the screen next to your face showed the 25th? Now, my final point is this. You talk here about how you are not seeing a sense of loss or grief from Chris or Katie.
You don't feel that sense of loss. You don't feel that they feel that emptiness, that sorrow, that horrific loss. They say, and I've never lost a child, but they say when you lose a child, and knowing people that have, that you just have this hole, and you sort of just kind of go through the motions of life after that, and you really never have complete happiness or joy ever again.
Okay, fair enough. But now take a listen to this, and please tell me if that sense of sorrow and grief is being displayed here by Seth Rogers on May 21st, just 3 months after Sebastian's disappearance.
Somebody's expecting.
I shouldn't talk. People have absolutely, it's like people have absolutely, I shouldn't talk about this or I shouldn't talk about that.
Somebody's expecting something.
And it always.
I'm almost there. Leave me alone.
Oh my God.
That's,
I thought I was getting a slow clap for a second.
If it's a slow clap, you need to go to the hospital.
Come on. Yes, parents of missing kids are allowed to have fun and cut it up. But when you say that one side of the house is not showing grief, and then you put the opposing party on a panel pretending to masturbate with that missing child's face as his icon, give me a freaking break. Look, I have no personal issues with Jennifer Coffindaffer, at least when she's out here spewing this nonsense. She isn't being a complete asshole about it. But as a former FBI agent who bases her entire internet persona on that fact and probably gets business by doing that, she's expected to maintain a higher standard of fairness to both sides of a situation. And I think I've shown pretty conclusively here that her analysis isn't only unfair and unbalanced, but also dangerous, because she knows that these types of accusations incite violence. She's endorsing the dangerous, destructive behavior of a specific team who keeps putting out disinformation. And as a former FBI agent with all that gravitas, she's pouring gasoline on that fire. To any audience members out there, just remember this. Jennifer Coffindaffer is not an unbiased, objective FBI agent who's going to look at all sides. She is a biased, incentivized, either emotionally or financially, expert witness. Thank you for watching. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and peace out.